We have new Melissa Febos. We have new Ali Smith. We have new Catherine Lacey. We have new Arundhati Roy. We have new Guadalupe Nettel. We even have new Elizabeth Gilbert coming out. 2025 is about to be such a stacked reading year. Let's go over 25 highly anticipated, mostly literary fiction releases that I am very excited for in 2025. There's so many good books coming out. Okay, so right off the bat, let's just get something off my chest, your chest, all of our collective chests. I did say 25, but it's likely going to be more because the rules don't matter. And there are way more than 25 books that I'm excited for, but just for like the symmetry of the title, let's pretend it's 25, but it's 25 plus a few. I'm gonna organize this by month. So we'll start in January. I think I have books until September. I think I'm talking a lot. Let's just get into it. The first book that I'm very, very excited for in 2025 is an Echo Press release. And this one reminds me a lot of Bluettes, Black in Blue by Imani Perry. I remember reading one Imani Perry book and really enjoying it. So I'm really excited for this. And it seems just like contemplations on the color blue and its fascinating role in Black history and culture. Imani Perry uses the world's favorite color. Wait, hold up. Is everyone's favorite color blue? It's not my favorite color. I actually don't resonate with the color blue at all. It feels too cold to me. I can't vibe with the color blue. I do have a lot of blue pieces in my apartment, but I think that's really interesting. Why is that? Anyway, tangent. Imani Perry uses the world's favorite color as a springboard for a riveting emotional, cultural, and spiritual journey. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited just to be in Imani Perry's hands again. Next. So this one has been getting a lot of buzz. I feel like I've been seeing a lot of people talking about it, and I'm really excited to pick it up. Also, this has been maybe my favorite PR package that I've ever gotten. It had a cute little hat in it that said Good Girl. So the book that we're talking about next is Good Girl by Arya Aber. This is a debut novel by a poet. Is she a poet? I feel like she's a poet. In my soul. Is she a poet? I don't think she's a poet. It's a story, like a coming of age story about a girl trying to find herself and what her purpose is, what the meaning of everything is, and she's doing it through like raves and literature. And that sounds really, really fun. It takes place in Berlin, but it's about the daughters of Afghan refugees. So yeah, super, super excited. This one is blurbed by Raven Leilani. Garth Greenwell. Listen, that is plenty for me. Those two in a team, yeah, it's definitely plenty for me. So super, super excited. Also blurbed by Kaveh Akbar. Tons of people loved his book. Then we have Open Socrates, A Case for a Philosophical Life by Agnes Callard. This one's being published by Norton. Agnes Callard, I remember she had a piece in The Atlantic, The New Yorker, called Marriage of the Mind. I'm gonna put a picture somewhere here. And I remember being really taken by her interrogation of the sort of relationships that we comply with or conform to, and how we don't really have to fit into these like super traditional relationships because we decide the kind of lives that we get to live. I'm very curious about anything Agnes Callard is putting out. And this one says, Callard draws our attention to Socrates' startling discoveries that we don't know how to ask ourselves the most important questions about how we should live, how we might change. Before a person even has a chance to reflect, forces of social conformity have already answered on their behalf. Callard argues that the true ambition of the Socratic method is to reveal what one human being can be to another. You can use another person in many ways, for survival, for pleasure, for comfort, but you are engaging them to the fullest when you call on them to help you answer your questions and challenge your answers. Something that really calls to me about this book is that I think that for me, I do a lot of my questioning in a very solitary manner. And actually, when I am in conversation with other people, if someone pushes me on my ideas, I get very defensive and I kind of shut down. So I don't think I am great at coming to new realizations alongside other people, and I want to work on that. I just feel like the learning that you do alongside each other in discourse, in disagreement, is so valuable. And I think being receptive to that is important, and also just like that skill of being able to work through things alongside other people as opposed to just like being in the solitary journey. I think that's why I like reading so much, because I get to do it on my own, but I think it's important to be able to do it in community. So I'm interested in it. The next one I have here is called Blob, a Love Story by Maggie Sue. This one's being published by Harper. This one sounds really weird, which I'm into. So this is a debut novel, and it says it's in the vein of Bunny and Convenience Store Woman. So it's like this girl discovers this blob, and she realizes that like she can train the blob, so she kind of like makes it her ideal boyfriend, but then shit hits the fan. Let me see. She starts feeding it sweet breakfast cereals and American pop culture. The creature grows into a movie star handsome man. But when V's desire to be loved unconditionally threatens to spiral out of control, she is forced to confront her lonely childhood, her aloof ex-boyfriend, and the racial marginalization that has defined her relationships. A journey of self-discovery that teaches her it's impossible to control those who you love. A heartfelt, witty story about the search for love and self. Sounds good to me. The next one I have is a nonfiction book. I did really poorly with balancing fiction and nonfiction in 2024, so I'm trying to make a more concerted effort to include nonfiction books, and lucky for me, there are a ton of nonfiction books being released this year. So one of those is The Siren's Call by Chris Hayes. Chris Hayes is a newscaster, anchor person on MSNBC, one of these like news channels. I was also reading, he put out something on the New York Times about attention. He was talking about the things that are vying for our attention and how valuable our attention is, and how uncomfortable societally and culturally we are with the ideas of boredom and idleness, but how those are like the breeding ground for a lot of like innovation, and reflection is really important, and oftentimes you can't reflect unless you are bored. So it's kind of, it feels like in the same vein with How to Do Nothing, that book that was, I think, very buzzy during the pandemic. But what I liked about Chris's, I liked his voice, first of all, and I liked that he was including a lot of philosophers in their ideas on idleness and how we arrive at ideas and things like that. So this one sounds really interesting. I feel like this would be a really good audiobook listen. That's how I envision myself consuming this book. The sort of line that got me was a powerful, wide-angle reckoning with how the assault from attention capitalism on our minds and hearts has reordered our politics and the very fabric of our society. Okay, we are in February. The first book that I have on my list, but I am so excited about, is called Death Takes Me by Cristina Rivera Garza. This is being published by Hogarth, I believe. Yeah, basically about a professor whose name is Cristina Rivera Garza. She comes across a corpse, and there's like verse that's attached to the corpse that is like a clue. And so then she's paired with like, let me see. The professor becomes the first informant on the case, which is led by a detective who is newly obsessed with poetry. As the bodies of more castrated men are found alongside lines of verse, the detective tries to decipher the meaning of the poems to put a stop to the violence spreading throughout the city. I think this is super fascinating. Cristina wrote a nonfiction book called El Invencible Verano de Liliana, or Liliana's Invincible Summer. And it was about the murder of her sister. But it also took a look at the femicide and the violence in Mexico City. I'm just very curious about how people metabolize their grief, and what I'm particularly interested in, how she's able to alchemize what she has been like bottling up and housing and working through this novel. I think it's fascinating that there are all these violences against men and how that's kind of handled. I'm super curious about like Cristina's psychology. So I'm really, really, really excited for this book. It's a dreamlike, genre-defying novel about a professor and detective seeking justice in a world suffused with gendered violence. She's putting such an interesting spin on it, and I'm just so curious and excited to see what she gives us. The next book is another nonfiction book called One Day Everyone Will Have Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. The little blurb was, as an immigrant who came to the West, El-Akkad believed that it promised freedom, a place of justice for all, but in the past 20 years, reporting on the war on terror, Ferguson, climate change, Black Lives Matter, and watching the unmitigated slaughter in Gaza, El-Akkad has come to the conclusion that much of what the West promises is a lie. There will always be entire groups of human beings that it has never intended to truly treat as fully human. It really reminds me of, I feel like James Baldwin spoke a lot in his nonfiction about like the myth of innocence of this country, calling out like the idea of exceptionalism, and Eddie Glaude more recently has used James Baldwin's work in order to make sense of kind of myth we're pushing, not us, whatever the nation is pushing. So I feel like this is very in line with that, but I'm excited to hear more about it, just to elaborate exposing that idea by someone from like a different community. So I'm really excited about this one. The next one that we have is Virginia's Victorian Psycho by Virginia Faito. Long listless days spent with the estate's dreary confines come with an intimate knowledge of the perversions and pathetic preoccupations of the Pound family. Mr. Pound can't keep his eyes off Winifred's chest, and Mrs. Pound takes a sickly pleasure in punishing Winifred for her husband's wandering gaze. Compounded with her disdain for the entitled Pound's children, Winifred finds herself struggling at every turn to stifle the violent compulsions of her past. French tutoring and needlework are one way to pass the time, as is admiring the ugly portraits in the gallery, and creeping across the moonlit lawns, patience. Winifred must have patience, for Christmas is coming, and she has very special gifts planned for the dear souls of the Ensor house. Brimming with sardonic wit and culminating in a shocking conclusion, Victorian Psycho plunges readers into a chilling mind of an iconic new literary psychopath. I'm in. That sounds fun! The next one is an Irish book called May All Your Skies Be Blue. I don't know what this one's about, but there was one Goodreads review that said, head is pounding from crying. I'm due for one of those. If there's anyone I trust literarily, in terms of literature, it's the Irish. So I don't really need to know what it's about. Let's just go into that one blind, because that's a really compelling way to get me into a book. Okay, this next one, I am so excited for. So this one is called No Fault by Haley Lotek. I should have looked that up before. I'm so sorry. But this one's called No Fault, and it's a memoir of romance and divorce. Deftly combining her personal story with wry, searching social and literary exploration, No Fault is a deeply felt and radical account of 21st century divorce, the remarkably common and seemingly singular experience, and what it reveals about our society and our desires for family, love, and friendship. Low-Tech asks profound questions about what divorce should be, who it is for, and why the institution of marriage maintains its power, all while charting a poignant and cathartic journey away from her own marriage towards an unknown future. Brilliant, funny, and unflinchingly honest, No Fault is a kaleidoscopic look at marriage, secrets, ambitions, and what it means to love and live with uncertainty, betrayal, and hope. I am so excited about this. I just love a book about an ending, and a book that specifically looks at divorce is I cannot wait. It's going to kind of uncover the, I was going to say the farce, but let me not be so cynical. It's going to show like a less romanticized view of marriage, which I'm always into. I like honesty, right? So I'm really excited about that one. And I'm going to skip ahead for a second because there's another book that I'm also super excited about, and I like want to experience these together. And so this one is Mothers and Other Fictional Characters by Nicole Grave Lipson, and this one's being published by Chronicle in March. But this one is an essay collection, and it's looking at things like motherhood, daughterhood, marriage, and friendship, beauty, aging, gender stereotypes. But anyway, I think like No Fault is going to be a great look at like the institution of marriage, and this one's going to be a great, honest, unromanticized portrayal of motherhood, and these together I'm so excited for. Also, No Fault is blurbed by Jia Tolentino, and Mothers and Other Fictional Characters is blurbed by Claire Dederer. And listen, I am a blurb whore. I need little else than my favorite humans telling me to do something. So if Gia and Claire are telling me to do it, yes ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I am so in. I'm so excited for these books. Okay, so let's go back to February. I'm so sorry. I was just very, very excited. But the other one is also really exciting. There's going to be so many good books. Okay, so this one is Ali Smith. It's a new Ali Smith. It's being published by Pantheon, and this one's called Glyph. There's the butt of a horse or a dog on the cover. I don't know what this one's about. I don't need to know what this one's about, but I'm excited for it. I actually have not read much Ali Smith. I've actually only read one Ali Smith. I've only read Autumn, which is in the seasonal quartet. I have heard such mixed things about her. I've heard mixed things about the seasonal quartet as a whole. I've heard it's like a very unbalanced quartet. So I've been kind of cautious or scared, let me be real, about moving through it. And then I have heard just like mixed things about her standalones. So I'm a little bit scared. I don't know if I should like jump into this one or if I should go to, I have some of her standalones here, so I'm wondering if maybe I should try to explore those before doing this one. But the one book that I have read by Ali Smith completely blew me out of the water, and it was something that I like hyper fixated for an entire year after I read it, because I could just not believe how playful and punny and like astute and critical but also light her explorations are, her writing is. So I'm excited. Okay, the next one that I am very excited for is called, I actually have a copy. This one is Bibliophobia by Sarah Chihaya. This one is being published by Random House. So interestingly enough, I started to read this book and I had to put it down. It starts very bell jar-like. She's having a breakdown and she's sort of contemplating or like trying to justify whether or not she's even allowed to have this breakdown, because breakdowns are reserved for a specific type of like person. And so she's sort of interrogating that, and then she starts to talk about these different books. So she talks about Anne of Green Gables, and she talks about Helen DeWitt, The Last Samurai. And I was just feeling like something about it was, actually, the more I think about it, I think this book scares me, which is interesting because the literal title is Bibliophobia, but she's talking about how she goes through this thing where like she all of a sudden cannot read and cannot write. Everything feels really illegible to her, and like she can't access writing. Like she's just at this major block. I don't like that. It scares me. Like I don't ever want to experience that. And I think maybe I was just feeling a little bit of fear about it. So I guess now that I've like reflected, maybe I'll go back to it. But I am very excited because she is going to be in conversation with Elif Batuman at McNally. I've actually not read any Elif Batuman, or at least I like tried to read The Idiot a couple of times and I've not been able to get into it. But I'm going with a friend who's a really big fan of Elif, and I'm going for Sarah. So together we make one cohesive fan. I think if you are a big reader, it's worth taking a look at. She interrogates her cultural identity, her relationship with depression, and the intoxicating, sometimes painful ways books push back on those who love them. Okay, this next one I am also super excited about. This one is You Didn't Hear This From Me by Kelsey McKinnon, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because she is one of our greats. She is one of the hosts of one of my favorite podcasts. It's, oh my God. Normal Gossip. Whoa. She is the host of Normal Gossip, and if you haven't heard Normal Gossip, I think I'm going to link like 3 of my favorite episodes down below, and it's going to be hard to pick 3 because all of them are excellent. But in terms of like just storytelling on its own, they're so fantastic at creating like intrigue, and I think they always have really great chemistry with their guests, and it's always just a ton of fun to listen to. And so yeah, Kelsey's coming out with a book, and I'm here to support my fave. A delightfully insightful exploration of our obsession with gossip that weaves together journalism, cultural criticism, and memoir. Super excited for it, cannot wait. There are a lot of books being published in February, wow. But the next book is called Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. Gorgeous cover. And this one is being published by Zando. A lot of the books that are on my list are being published by Zando, and I was confused because I had never heard of Zando before, but apparently it's like a celebrity independent publishing house that's like trying to push against like traditional publishing, give a microphone to voices that are not often heard. It's also weird because they have like Lena Waithe and there was like one person who I was like very shocked to see on their list of organizers. Let me see. Oh, you know who it was? The guy who sings "We're Just Ordinary People." What's his name? John Legend? John Legend. Yeah, he has an imprint in it too. I don't know. It's weird, but anything is possible in 2025. And so Hungerstone, the blurb for this one says, a dark, sensuous, gothic story of female appetite, ravenous desire, and insatiable rage. A blood-drenched, glittering jewel of a novel. I think I also saw a Goodreads. I am super easily swayed, and so if I see a good, compelling Goodreads review, I'll probably pick it up. Someone says, turns out I wasn't in a reading slump. I just needed lesbian vampires. I'll read that. I think we're finally in March. The next book that I'm super excited for is another Irish book. This one's called I Want to Go Home, But I'm Already There by Róisín Lanigan. This is a ghost story that takes place in an apartment complex, and it's about loneliness and loss and belonging and cracks in a relationship. So this one feels like more up my alley, more what I'm used to, more, I don't know, I'm assuming. It's blurbed by like Ocean McKenna and Susanna Dickey. And then we have another Irish author. This one, I feel like he's a pretty prolific or popular, more mainstream-y writer. This is called Twist by Colin McCann. It's being published by Random House. I know that there's a book, something about the world spinning, that like a lot of people have read. I haven't read it yet. It seems really plotty. I might read it, but just in case you're interested, this says, at sea they are forced to confront the most elemental questions of life, love, absence, belonging, and the perils of our severed connections. Can we, in our fractured world, reweave ourselves out of our thin broken threads of the past? Can the ruptured things awaken us from our despair? I don't know. I'm curious about it, so if it comes my way, I'll read it. The next one is called The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. This one is being published by, I didn't write it down. Sorry. But this one says, a riveting and utterly original novel about one woman's fight for freedom set in a near future where even dreams are under surveillance. I've been really interested in surveillance lately, just like the idea of surveillance and capitalism under surveillance. I'm reading this book, Filter World, and it's like blowing my brain. And I also have heard like Jia Tolentino talk about, Jia Tolentino, she is my actual literal queen, but she's also been talking about surveillance recently. And so I've been just like, that's been on my mind a lot. So maybe that's why I'm picking this book, but I also feel like Layla Lalami, I don't know, like she's pretty popular, right? So that's on the list. Okay, everyone settle down. Me talking to me. So the first book in April that's coming out, or I don't know if it's the first book, but the first book that I'm very excited for in April is, you ready? The Accidentals by La Reina, the other queen, Guadalupe Nettel. I am so excited. This one's being published by Bloomsbury. This one is a collection of short stories. I don't remember if it was the first, I think I read Stillborn and then I read Besoar. I just love how Guadalupe explores things, and I think I really like her in short stories. She's very weird in short stories, at least from what I remember from Besoar. This one, I don't even know what it's about. Do we really need a description? I don't, but just in case you do. It's 8 characters who are in their own way lost and wandering, struggling to connect with their people around them. A powerful collection of stories about characters coping with estrangement, isolation, and the unknown. Super interesting because I feel like maybe not so much Stillborn. Actually, there were some elements of that in Stillborn, but After the Winter was a very cold, lonely book, struggling for connection. It's a theme that I have picked up in her work a lot, and in Besoar as well. I'm just so fucking excited for this. You know where I'll be in April. Also, it's translated by Rosalind Harvey, and I feel like I don't think anyone else has. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I feel like maybe all her books have been translated by her. Is that true? I'm gonna look this up really fast. I think After the Winter was not translated by Rosalind. Let me see. It was translated by Rosalind Harvey. They just work really well together. Really, really, really excited for that. All right, the next book is called Vanishing Worlds by Sayaka Murata, and this one is coming out by Grove. I really like the cover of this one. I haven't read Earthlings yet, but I vibed with Convenience Store Women. I'm not completely sure what my feelings are on Sayaka Murata, but I'd like to read more from her, so I'm excited for this one. And also, this premise is weird. It's a surprising and highly imaginative story set in a version of Japan where sex between married couples has vanished and all children are born by artificial insemination. You know, I'm a little bit concerned for Sayaka Murata because she's always coming up with very strange premises for her books, but like also grateful, right? Because like I'm into that. Just weird. I'll definitely be picking that one up. The next one we have is Authority by Andrea Long Chu. This one is a collection of essays that spans a couple of different things. Authority brings together Chu's critical work across a wide range of media like novels, television, theater, and video games, as well as an acclaimed tetralogy of literary essays first published in N+1. She questions the enduring habit of reading Octavia Butler's science fiction as a parable of slavery and charges fellow critics like Maggie Nelson and Zadie Smith with a complacent humanism. I feel like she is going to stir the pot, and I'm always here for the drama. The next one we have is New Emily Henry. It's A Great Big Beautiful Life. I literally did not put a single thing about this book. Do we need a single thing written about this book? No. Emily Henry gives us something, I read it. That is just the sequence of events. From the cover, let's make some guesses. There's a chick with a bag and a man with something in publishing. That's my guess. Doesn't matter though. I will be reading it. And then we have Audition by Katie Kitamura. This one is One Woman, the performance of a lifetime, or Chew, an exhilarating and destabilizing Mobius strip of a novel that asks us whether we ever really knew the people that we love. The next book I have is These Days by Lucy Caldwell. This one is also being published by Zando, and I feel like this one's already out in the UK. Lucy Caldwell is a writer that I want to read, and I can't find her in the US. There are a couple of Irish writers, like Susanna Dickey also has no books published in the US. Like I can't borrow it from my library. I can't order it like within the States. And Lucy Caldwell as well. I was actually planning on picking one of her books up when I go back to Ireland, but since this one's being published, I can just buy the American version. Exquisitely lyrical Louise Kennedy novel from a singular Irish writer following two sisters over the course of 4 nights as they reckon with their futures in war-torn Belfast. I'm just super curious about Lucy. I feel like I've heard wonderful things about her and her writing, so I'm super excited for that. The next book is a FSG publication. I feel like this is maybe the first FSG book that I have on my list, which is different. I feel like I usually mostly read FSG, but this one I believe is like a re-release. This one's called Fishtails by Nettie Jones. The blurb is yummy. A wild swirl of desire, pleasure, power, drugs, and sex, Nettie Jones' Fishtail is a bold exploration of the blurred spaces we inhabit. Sexuality and race, agency and exploitation, selfhood and intimacy, sanity and self-destruction, art and the profane. As action-packed as it is brief, Fishtails is a collage, a time capsule, a snapshot, a message. And it is strikingly, unnervingly current in its deluge of desire, on top of anxiety, on top of ego and identity, on top of freedom, and on top of love. I am so excited for that. I really am eager to pick that one up in particular. The next book I have here is a June release. This one is The Dry Season by Melissa Febos. Wait, who wrote The Pisces? Not Melissa Febos. What's her name? Melissa Broder. Oh, I was thinking someone different. Melissa Febos wrote Girlhood. I've still not read Girlhood. Okay, reframe. I was thinking someone else, but this one sounds really fascinating. A memoir of pleasure in a year without sex. I was reading The Mirror Test by Melissa Febos. It was like a short story or essay published in the Paris Review. I really enjoy her voice. I have to just like pick up Girlhood. I remember I went to the library one morning, sat down and started to read Girlhood, and then like didn't pick her up. And she also has a craft book, I think, that I like need to get to. So I've been slacking, but this one says it's an examination of the solitude, freedoms, and feminist heroes Melissa Febos discovered during a year of celibacy. A wise and transformative look at relationships and self-knowledge. I'm always very curious about explorations of pleasure outside of sex. So I think this is a really fascinating book, and I'm really excited to get into it. I think it'll be a really interesting read. The Mobius book by Catherine Lacey. I'm really excited about this one. I believe this one's being published by FSG. I'm not sure. This is not a novel. It's like a memoir, essay. It's a hybrid work across fiction and nonfiction with no beginning or ending. Troubles the line between memory and fiction with an open-hearted defense of fate's inherent dangers. Through relationships, travel, and reading, Lacey charts the contours of fate's absence and reemergence. Bending form, she and her characters recall Gnostic experiences with animals, close encounters with male anger, grief-driven lust, and the redemptive power of platonic love and narrative itself. I just think Catherine Lacey is a really compelling writer. I remember really enjoying, I actually didn't read the biography of X, but I really enjoyed Pew, so I'm curious, and this one sounds really, really fascinating. This one I'm super excited about. It's being published by Little Brown, and Little Brown never, they never give me arcs of anything, so I might have to get on my hands and knees for this one. But this one is called Lonely Crowds, and it's publishing in July. It's by Stephanie Wambugu. Luster Meets the Idiot. In this riveting debut novel about a volatile friendship between two outsiders who escape their bleak childhoods and enter the glamorous early 90s art world in New York City, where only one of them can make it. Also, this is like a stunning cover. It's a beautiful cover. I'm super, super excited for this. Okay, I am way past like 25. I'm so sorry. I think this is the last one. The last book, I'll leave you with quite a bang. So the last book on my list is Mother Mary Comes to Me by the great Arundhati Roy. This one's coming out in September. It's like a nonfiction book about her relationship with her mother. There's one line where she says, "It's both intimate and inspiring how the author became the person and the writer that she is, shaped by circumstance, but above all by her complex relationship with her extraordinary, singular mother, who she describes as my shelter and my storm." I have missed Roy so much. She's like one of my absolute favorite writers, and I am so excited she's giving us something new. Also, I heard that Elizabeth Gilbert is coming out with something in September. So I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. And Elizabeth is my homegirl, so I'm also very excited about that one. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, those are the books that are coming out in 2025 that I am super excited about. Let me know if there are any books that you are excited about, or if there's anything that you feel like Kat and I have the same taste, she needs to read this. Put it down below. I will be taking copious notes. And yeah, I hope y'all have been doing well. I do think that's it. We'll see each other soon. Bye.